So thank you for joining us today. We're happy to have Nancy Phillips here to talk about saving for a home. If you have any questions, please post them in the chat and we'll get to them at the end of her presentation. So let me start by introducing Nancy. She has over 30 years in tax, accounting, and financial services area. She started her CPA practice in 1985 and has a broad financial background, having helped many small business and family groups with tax planning and financial decisions over the years. In addition to her CPA license, she's also a certified financial planner and holds various other security licenses. She completed an undergraduate degree in accounting from UTA and received a master's in professional accounting from Baylor University. She was born and raised here in the DFW area and lives with her husband. And her hobbies include travel, gourmet cooking, and she's a member of a local ladies singing group. So welcome, Nancy. I'm so excited to have you here. I'm going to turn it over to you to do your presentation, and then I'll come back at the end and we'll do audience questions.
Okay, great. Well, real estate is something I love. I grew up in Fort Worth with my parents bought rental properties. And so my parents had about 12 rental properties, and we would go on weekends and paint houses in between tenants. And so as I moved to Dallas after college and got married, my husband and I, he's handy, and we started buying rental properties. We bought our own house and we have rental properties. So we own about 16 houses, and I also own my commercial office space here where I'm sitting. And I've reviewed dozens, probably hundreds of house purchase and sale contracts for my clients. So I primarily do tax work, but I also have a lot of other credentials. I did, as preparation for this seminar, I called one of my friends who's a mortgage broker who I've referred a lot of clients to over the years. He's with Prime Lending, and they're one of the biggest lenders in the United States. And I've actually personally used him for home loans over the years. So I called him and asked him about some of these statistics in this PowerPoint, because this was written in 2015. So it's a little bit old. And, of course, the interest rates have really changed here recently. They've gone up. So I went over some of the facts in here, and I'm going to tell you some of the updated facts from that. But let's go right to the PowerPoint. This was put together from the Financial Planning Association. It is a professional group that I'm a member of in Dallas. They're all over the country. We have a really large organization here in Dallas, so I go to a lot of their meetings. So they put together these tips for how to own your own home. We're going to talk about loans and amortization tables and points and what all that means. So let's go right to that outline now. I'm going to share my screen, and this is the first time I have been able to do this. So yeah, oh wow. So I think you all can see
We can.
Screen now. All right. So I will go on through this. So owning your own home. This is kind of an overview, getting ready, the debt on your home. See if I can move this over now. Okay. Whoops. Go back. Let me go back. Sorry. I am getting new with this. And I'm already on screen 6. Okay, we're going to talk about debt, mortgages, resale, you as a homeowner, and give you some resources on places to look up things. So some of the myths and truth. Is it a myth or truth that it's always better to buy rather than rent? Is it always true that a home is always a good investment? Is it true that good credit will get me a better mortgage? Well, let me talk about this first one. Better to buy than to rent. If you're in a new city, you don't know where you want to buy, or you want something for a temporary period, you just need something for 6 months to a year, it does not make sense to buy. The down payment and the closing costs usually run 6 to 10% of the cost of a home. So to get into a home and then to get out of a home with all those costs on each end does not make sense for a short period of time. You want to own a home for a long period of time. A home is always a good investment. Well, again, short periods of time aren't good. You need to buy a home that's nice and sound. I had a client who bought a home who she bought it from a realtor. Terrible story. She bought it from a realtor who did not disclose some defects to the home, and there was a drainage problem with her lot. When it rained hard, the water would roll into the back door. She met with engineers and talked about correcting the drainage problem, and it appeared there was nothing she could do. She ended up suing the realtor who bought her the home. She spent hundreds of thousands with an attorney and ultimately got some money back, but she had spent so much with an attorney, she lost a lot of money on the deal. So you want to get a good, sound home. And most homes, if you buy a good, sound home in a good neighborhood, and we'll talk about that some more, in the long run, the prices of homes go up. What I heard years ago was about 4 to 5% per year. Homes have gone nuts in the last few years. So I don't know average over the last 50 years what an average increase in home value is, but they've really gone nuts in the last few years. They've gone up so much. And so what happens with homes is you gradually pay down your mortgage and your home value goes up. So you're left with a lot of equity in a home, which helps. Home equity is most of the American population's main asset. And that's why, because you put money into it slowly and it slowly goes up in value over time. So it's good to buy and hold it, hang in there, pay it down. Truth or myth, good credit will get me a better mortgage. That is really true. And we'll see some charts in here about that. You can really save money on your monthly fees if you keep your credit good. So it's very, very, very important. My son is 32, and when he went off to college and he got his first credit card, I really emphasized the fact that he needed to pay that bill, maybe even set it up where it's automatically paid, so that if you're on vacation, it will be paid on time. It can mean hundreds of thousands of dollars later in your life. It'll be opportunities for you to get good loans and lower interest rates. So very important. I don't know how to go backwards on this chart.
Nancy,
Yes.
to go
Yes.
back, if you use the arrow keys on your keyboard.
I'm going to try that. Okay. Yeah, there we go. So I really love this chart. So this talks about how important your FICO score or your credit report is to how much your payments and your interest rate will be. And this is, of course, an old chart. Rates have gone up, but a 30-year fixed rate mortgage with $300,000 is what these assumptions are at this point in time. And do you see your monthly payment with a credit score of 760 to 850? 850 is the highest you can get. Your payment would be $13.95 a month. If you're down in a lower credit score, 620 to 639, your payment would be about $300 more at $1,680. So in 620, 639, that is not the lowest you can go. I went on, I'll have this website here in a minute. I went on Google just a few minutes ago and looked at what the interest rates are today. And a 30-year fixed rate, it had a chart and it gave you arrows down for you to put in your credit score. But a 30-year fixed rate is about anywhere from 5.6% if you've got excellent credit, down to up to 7.3% if your credit is down there toward the bottom in the 600s, low 600s to mid 600s. So really, really, really important for you to keep your credit score good. You need to check your credit report every now and then. I know my son had a Discover card, and on the monthly bills, they would send him a credit score automatically. It's just printed on there. It fluctuated monthly, which is really unusual. So there's a lot of things that affect your credit score. I remember once upon a time, I lost my Sam's card to get into Sam's, and I said, "Oh, it's probably at home. I could probably find it." But they said, "Oh, we can just reissue you one." So they took me over, took the picture, reissued me a card. And I think right after that, they mentioned to me that this will affect your credit score. Your credit score will decrease because you've lost your Sam's card. I was like, really? Wow. Also, another experience I personally have had to get more credit. So you buy a car loan. If you buy a car right before you buy a house, that could be a problem. So I remember we bought a house once upon a car once upon a time. And because we had more credit on our credit report, our credit score went down. So that's just to tell you a little bit about that. So here are some places, the three main credit bureaus: Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Here's their websites and their phone numbers. It is important to know what your credit score is because, again, you can look at what your interest rate is going to be based on how good or how bad your credit score is. And even if you're a tenant right now, your credit score is important. I own about 16 rental homes, and we do a credit and criminal check on every one that we lease to. And those are, we don't allow felons, and we really look at credit scores. We look at the fact that people have a job. Hopefully they have a steady job. They've been there at least a couple of years. And we look at credit reports. I remember seeing a woman one day who had this gorgeous big diamond ring on. It must have been at least 2 carats. And when I went to get her credit report, there was Zales who had written off a diamond ring. She had never paid for it. They'd probably put a down payment on it, and she'd never paid for it. And I did not rent to that person. So even as a tenant, it's important to keep your credit report in good order. So check your credit report, know what your credit score is. There are ways to repair your credit report and credit score. Again, it's not good to buy a fancy new car right before you buy a house. That will limit probably the price of a home that you can buy and the loan that you can get. Another personal experience, I like to throw these in because they're a little more interesting than just reading these PowerPoint presentations. But years ago, when I was right out of college, I checked my credit report, and there was, I had 2 Sears cards and 2 Citibank cards and I said, I've only got one of all these. Who is this other person? Her credit is all on top of mine, and her credit was all bad and mine was all good. And I have a very common name, Nancy. I use the middle initial K now just to differentiate myself between the other Nancy Phillips. And my dry cleaners has 2 or 3 Nancy Phillips, and my doctor's office has 3 or 4 Nancy Phillips. So, and I think the credit bureaus now use Social Security numbers primarily. But this other Nancy Phillips had all of her credit report on mine. So it took some letters, or a letter or 2, to point out to the credit bureau that these were not my my credit cards that I only had one Sears card, and I only had one Citibank Visa card, and they took them off. So if there's something that's incorrect on your credit report, you do need to get in there and help correct it. So improving your credit, pay your bills on time, figure out how you can do that, whether it's the automatic pay, very, very important. Reduce your overall total debt and only apply for credit that you need. Don't just because they send credit card applications in the mail, don't just get 10 credit cards just because you think that's cool and somebody's offered it to you. Only get what you need and are going to use. Also have 2 years of continuous employment, even if not the same job. So that would be, I guess, with the same company, but you've changed positions within a company, and be able to explain why you've changed jobs if you have not been able to have the 2 years. There's something I was going to say here. Apply for credit union. Oh yeah, a couple of things. So again, I'm a landlord, and so I have leased to people who had horrible credit, but they told me and proved to me that they had gone out of their way to go to a, what is the name? Consumer Credit Counseling. It's a nonprofit organization. It's here in Dallas, and I'm sure there's a branch of it in Fort Worth. They sit down with you. They help you consolidate your debts. They take a percentage of the money that's comes in monthly. They get with all of your creditors and they say, well, you take 70 cents on the dollar. I'm going to help this person who's behind and on the verge of bankruptcy possibly to pay these bills, and they're going to work with, we're going to work together on a program to pay these off. So they negotiate some percentage to pay off credit card debt. They get a percentage, but you get an overall discount in paying it off. So my prospective tenant at the time explained to me that although she was on the verge of bankruptcy and her credit was horrible, she had taken some steps and actions to make it better. And when you tell anybody that you're working at it, here's what you've done, you've taken concrete steps, it really is impressive. I've had other prospective tenants who have come with recommendation letters. And I've heard people doing this now, currently in the current environment where there's just not many homes available. This also will help to put you ahead of some of the other prospective buyers. So people who are wanting to sell a home, that home is very special to them. Home is a big purchase. And so here they are with several potential buyers who are thinking about buying the home, and it's a nice neighborhood, and their kids have grown up there, let's say, good schools, and they want a family in there. So if you come with a recommendation letter, tell about your family. This is a family with 2 kids, and we do this, we have jobs doing this, a recommendation letter. That really can sway either a landlord or a potential seller's mind to sell you the house. So there's some examples of how that worked in past. And so, yeah, I have heard of people doing that with homes right now. Okay, down payment and closing cost. Wow, this is a tough hurdle to get over, especially with your first home. Down payment so I called my mortgage broker friend, and he said that you can do 5% down these days. It's normal. When you put less than 20% down, you have to have something called private mortgage insurance. They abbreviate that PMI. And the reason for that, what that is it ensures the mortgage lender that that they're going to get their money back if you stop paying your payments. So if you've only got 5% down and you lose your job and you have to move out and give that house back to the lender has to sell it on the courthouse steps. They are not going to get it. They are not going to sell it for 95% of the cost of the value. They're going to have to take a deep discount. So they may sell it at 70% of the value. Sometimes there's been wear and tear on the house, and so they don't get a great deal on it. They don't get top dollar. So that private mortgage insurance that you have had to pay while you had the loan, it's tacked onto your mortgage each month, helps to cover that difference of what they get and the loan amount. So that's what the private mortgage insurance is. So one of the tricks is to get a first lien that's only 80% of the value of their home, and to get a second lien, which is usually a little bit higher interest rate and a shorter period of time, but it's for that additional, let's say 15%. So now you do not have that private mortgage insurance each month. And I've seen that running, I don't know, $180 a month. I'm just throwing out an estimate. I haven't looked at that lately, but it's not cheap. So to get a second lien, even at a higher price, sometimes makes sense. And if you get a good lender, they will give you some advice about this, but you certainly do need to ask. Closing cost. I went to this FreddieMac.com site just a few minutes ago, and I was amazed at the articles. You have to search closing costs. It's got a search box, and I put in closing costs, and there's a ton of articles about it. They also had a little calculate the closing costs. Now, a good mortgage broker can sit down and educate you, but there's so much on the internet these days. You can educate yourself, and you can look things up easily from your home. But this website, I looked up closing costs, and it had those interest rates that we looked at earlier. It has the current today's interest rates. And normally you see 30-year loans and 15-year loans are the two most common. I think occasionally there are 20-year loans. But it also had a breakdown of closing costs. And closing costs, this is what you got to come to the table with when you buy a home. I've got the chart that I printed off this website here in front of me. There may be loan discount fees or points, loan origination charge. Loan origination charge and loan discount points. The word points means a percentage of your loan amount. So $100,000 loan and 1 point is 1%. So that would be, what is that, $1,000? Move the decimal over 2 places to get there. So $1,000 is 1 point, right? Times 0.01. Yes, $1,000. Okay. So 1 point is $1,000. Loan discount points are generally interest paid up front. So you're paying down to get a lower interest over the life of your loan. But of course, you need to stay in that house for a long period of time for that to make sense. You can possibly get out of doing that to save your money on the front end. So again, get a good mortgage person who can give you some advice about what the going rates are and how you can keep your costs down going into a home. Other settlement costs, an appraisal runs, it said $300. Credit report might be $50 or $60. Flood certification, tax service, title service, $350. Owner's title insurance, $350. Government recording fees are small. Survey might run you $175. Pest inspection about $100. Let's say, where is your Where's the guy, the survey? Where's the guy who comes out and looks at everything in your home? What is he called? Survey usually just marks the edge corners of your property, and they give you a little map of your property, and if there's any easements in the back or the front for the city to go through the back of your property, like the back alley. If your property runs into the back alley, they'll show you exactly. Or if your neighbor has their fence built on your property, you'll find that out with the survey. The inspection is what I was talking about. I see a pest inspection. I don't see an inspection on this list, but an inspector is very important, especially for a first-time home buyer. They will tell you, they should have caught that woman who had the horrible drainage problem. They have a standard list of things that they cover, but they're pretty picky usually. So they cover any plug that doesn't work, a roof that is sagging or needs repair. They'll nitpick and tell you everything that needs fixing in the house. So sometimes you can go back to the seller and ask them to fix those items. Sometimes you can ask for a discount if you want to fix them yourself. Sometimes they have to be fixed in order for the mortgage lender to loan you the money, because they're so bad that the lender is concerned about this house that they may have to repossess at some point. So that inspection, you pay for, and you want to be present at that inspection to hear what that person has to say about this house that you're about to buy. Also at closing, when you buy the house, you may pay prepaid interest. You may pay, usually they collect a year's worth of homeowners insurance and pay it to your company that you choose. So you will have upfront, you will be paying for a year of homeowners insurance. They've got $1,000 on this estimate. So homeowners insurance, insuring the home and your contents, is going to be more expensive than what you pay for as a renter. Your renter's insurance may be, I'm guessing, $250 a year. It's just insuring the content, the stuff inside your place. But as a homeowner, you're insuring the stuff inside your house plus the house. So if you get hail damage or your house burns completely to the ground, they will pay to rebuild your house. So homeowners insurance, you can see, is going to run more. Also, I wanted to talk, when we're talking about closing and the money that you've got to come up with at closing. So this little chart had, $3,500 to $8,000 in estimated closing cost, with the down payment and the and all these fees involved. So you do have to have your money in order, saved up in order to do this. Another way some young folks a lot of time do this is their parents give them a gift to cover a lot of their down payment cost. The mortgage company does not want to know, does not want to see that you're getting a loan from your friend or another bank or your parents in putting this money down. They want to see that you're financially secure and that you do not have yet another person to pay back a loan to. So if your parents decide to help you with a loan, the mortgage company wants a letter from your parents saying this is a gift. This is not a loan that you have to repay. So when I first started out, we did that with my in-laws gave us some money to put down on a house. We took out a little bit of money from a retirement plan, 401k plan or an IRA, to put down on a house to get into our first home. So those are some ideas of how you can come up with cash. Okay, mortgages. We talked about 15, 20, and 30-year mortgages. P plus I is is a usual term in the mortgage business that stands for principal plus interest. PITI is principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So usually, well, a lot of times you will have an escrow account with your mortgage company. And what that is, I describe that as being like a savings account. It's your money. It's put in a savings account, an account with the lender. They take a little bit every month towards your taxes that are due, usually paid in December, and your home mortgage, your house insurance, which, remember, you paid a whole year's worth at closing, but another year's worth is going to be due a year from closing. So they're going to take a little bit each month, an estimate of what they think your next year's homeowner's insurance is going to be and what your taxes are going to be. So they will accumulate that money in your savings account. If you were to sell the home the next day, they would give you back the money in your escrow account. It's your money, but it's put aside to ensure that you'll have money at the right time to pay your tax bill and your home insurance bill, because those are paid once a year. So people that are just starting out and are not good with money, it's best to have an escrow account. You pay a little bit each month, you don't think about it, and it's there available to pay those big bills at year end, or when those bills come due. We talked about mortgage insurance. That's that private mortgage insurance that I talked about that can be avoided if you do it right. Private mortgage insurance usually never goes away. If you have a loan, you don't put the 20% down. So you're paying that payment every month and with your payment. If you have a lot of equity, your home goes up in value, you've been there for 5 years, and now you think you've only got a mortgage of 70% of the value of your home, I think, don't hold me to it, but I think you can get it appraised and possibly get rid of your mortgage insurance. The mortgage lender I talked to said that if you get an FHA loan, he kind of advised against getting FHA loans. He said your mortgage insurance never goes away. You can't get rid of it. So that's something to maybe ask about or get educated on if you have mortgage insurance on your lien. Foreclosures. Okay, well, you have to pay your payments to keep your house. I don't know what else to say about that. That is not a good thing. I can talk about the foreclosures that happened several years ago. When was it? I don't even know what years, but 15 years ago, let's say. The U.S. government decided that everybody needed to own a home, and they made lending, all the mortgage lenders made it easier to borrow money. And so we had 15 tenants at the time, and probably 4 or 5 of them moved out within just a few months of each other. They all were able to get loans and go buy houses. So rents went temporarily down. People were buying homes like crazy. Lenders weren't checking references as well as they do now. And about a year later, all of a sudden, there were a lot of foreclosures because these people that bought homes really were not disciplined financially. They really shouldn't have bought to begin with, but the lenders made it easy for them to do that. So when you go into it, feel like you've got a comfortable payment amount that you can afford. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. Here is, I think this picture is over the number, but I think this is 4,000 of gross income. Let me see that, 4,000 times the 29% rule. Yeah, that's 4,000 times 29% gives you a mortgage payment of $1,160. So this tells you a rough estimate of how much you can afford. Again, what you need to do is you need to get pre-qualified. The mortgage lender I talked to recently said it takes about 2 weeks to get pre-qualified. Definitely do that. With as tight as the market is right now, you need for the seller to know that you have already checked out, you have a job, you have a lender that will have, they've said that they'll finance a home up to X dollars for you. And so you definitely want to get pre-qualified, pre-approved. But this is a rough estimate. Also, there's a rule that your estimated monthly mortgage payment and other loans, so this is your car loan, your credit card debt, can be no more than, this slide has 41% on it, 0.41. He says that the going rate is really 0.45 right now. So this is why it's good for you not to buy a fancy new car a month before you buy a house. I remember stories of one friend of mine who had to come to the closing with money, checks, I guess, to pay off all of her credit cards because they didn't fit into the formula. She didn't have enough money, according to the mortgage company. She didn't have enough money to pay her mortgage and her car payment and 3 or 4 credit cards each month after closing. So they made her pay off all of her credit card debt at closing or before closing. So all of your other debt is important and it is taken into consideration when you get a house loan. Okay, there's the pre-qualification. Pre-approval is a conditional okay, but yes, do that. So there are interest rates that stay the same. You could get a fixed rate mortgage. Right now, the rates have temporarily gone up. They're still low historically when you look over the last 50, 60 years. They're still low, but they were unheard of low the last few years at 2 and 3% was just the lowest it's been in 50 years. So you have to decide whether you think the rates are still going to go up. If you think they're still going to go up and you're buying today, you would want a fixed rate mortgage for whatever you could afford, a 15, 20, or 30-year mortgage. Most first-time home buyers get a 30-year mortgage because it gives you a lower payment. But it's real interesting when you look at an amortization table. One of my employees just changed from a 30-year mortgage. He refinanced 30-year mortgage down to a 15-year mortgage, and his payment was only about $150 more per month, but he's going to have it paid off 7 or 10 years earlier. So you might think about that. I mean, he's wanting to chunk extra money, a little extra every payment, and he wants it paid off earlier. He's getting more equity in his home each month. So then there's adjustable rate mortgages. So those fluctuate based on market interest rates. Let me think of some examples. I know I have had, so usually they charge maybe 2% above the going U.S. Treasury rate, or 3% above the U.S. Treasury rate, or 5% above. I don't know what the going rate is on that, but, and then it adjusts once a year to whatever the going rate is. So you'll know what your payment is for a year, but then it goes up or down according to market. The slide says know your caps. So the loan document that you sign will have the terms of your loan. So if the cap is 4% above, the current rate is 4%, but your cap is 4 above that at 8%. It will never go up. So if interest rates go wild and go way up, there's a cap on this loan. It will never go up more than 4% of your first year rate. So you need to know what those caps are. It also has a down cap usually. So it may say it will never go down more than 2% or 1% below what the first year rate is. So the benefits of adjustable rate mortgages are if the rates are very high and you think rates are going to go back down, you may want a 1 year or 3 year adjustable rate mortgage. You may want a fixed for 3 years and then you want it to go down. You're hoping it'll go down. There are interest-only mortgages. One of my clients he had gotten into a very expensive home. It was in a really small neighborhood that he had helped develop. He was helping to the guys who were developing that area. It was a little cul-de-sac with only 7 homes on it. And it was such an expensive home though. And he was toward the end of his career and was going to be retiring. He refinanced and he found an interest-only loan. And this was just about 5 years ago. He got an interest-only loan for 2%. And he told me he cried. He was so happy because his payment that had been $6,000 a month, I don't remember what it was very high, went way down. And he was able to stay in the home and not have to have it repossessed or not have to have it sell it quickly because he just couldn't afford to stay there. So interest-only mortgages are sometimes, I've seen them used with really expensive homes where you're hoping that eventually the prices will go up. You're sitting in a very expensive home. You're enjoying being in the best neighborhood in town, but it's tough to afford it. So that's kind of when I've seen interest-only mortgages used. You're not accumulating any equity in your home because you're not paying down the mortgage. You're just paying the interest every month. There also is something called a negative amortization. I don't think they do this anymore, but it was where your payment would be $1,000, but they were only going to charge you for the first 2 years. They were going to only charge you $800. So it was to help get people into homes that were having trouble qualifying. So that extra $200 that you didn't pay just got tacked on to your mortgage, to the principal of your loan. So your mortgage amount went up. So you could be in trouble if your house value did not go up at least that or more. You could get on down the road and your mortgage would be more than your the value of your house. And a lot of those, the mortgage lenders got in trouble with that because a lot of those were in foreclosure. People couldn't afford to sell the house. So they just had to give it back to the lender. So those are very tricky and not good things to have. Okay, your mortgage. Usually there are no prepayment penalties, but you'd want to check on that. Sometimes there are special programs. I'm not sure of any recently, but way back when I got out of college, they had some government programs that were special bond money for first-time home buyers. So you might ask a lender about that. Make sure your payments feel comfortable to you, that you're not stretching so far that you can't pay your payments. That's really what the lender does for you, though. They make sure with these percentages and they look at your income, they make sure you fit into an area that you're in a comfortable payment for your income. And don't forget your other financial goals like saving for retirement. You need to be contributing at work. If you have a retirement plan at work, I recommend people contribute the most they can. I have seen people take money out of their 401ks. And I mentioned that we had done that. So for a temporary period of time to take money out and put down on a house, first-time home buyers, that's okay, but don't do that for long, don't, you need to be saving for retirement. So, predatory lenders. Make sure you're dealing with reputable people. I haven't heard any stories about these recently, so just make sure you're dealing with a reputable company. Think about resale before you buy. What makes a house sell? Single family homes are much better than condos or attached homes or high rises. Condos have homeowners associations, and they have to jointly put in money to repair the roofs, the sidewalks out front, the joint areas, if it's a clubhouse or the bushes. There's stuff that you don't think about. And as condos deteriorate with age, those HOA fees go up in value. And you are fighting with neighbors on when is the right time to put new roofs on all of the condos. And you have to go in to meetings and make decisions with other folks. So single family homes are more desired. Buying the smallest house on the block is also a good thing, I've heard. That makes your house more valuable rather than buying the biggest house on the block, biggest, most expensive. A conventional style and interior is preferred over a real modern looking with weird structure. The neighborhood is important. Do they have good schools? Do they have, even if you don't have children currently, you ought to check out what's the rating of the schools in the neighborhood where you're looking to buy. And also look at the crime in the neighborhood you want to buy. You can do that on the internet. If it's a home builder, is he reputable? Look at the soundness of the home. And when I say that, one of the most important things on soundness of a home is the foundation. We have bought homes that needed foundation work. And one home we bought a few years ago, it had just not been built properly. The boards underneath, it was pier and beam, the boards had not been put close enough together underneath the entire house. And the whole house was sinking in various places. You'd walk down the hall and it was just the hallway area was sunk about 3 inches on one side of the hallway. They had shown that house to 100 people. The poor realtor couldn't find anybody to buy it. We made an offer and bought the house. We spent, I think, over $25,000 up front doing what we thought to repair the foundation. We thought it was repaired. About 2 years later, in between tenants, we realized it was sinking and sagging. Again, we spent another maybe $20,000. And I think it is, again, maybe having some problems. This has been a few years back. So, you know, if it's in a neighborhood where the soil just moves around a lot, it probably will continue to do that, even though you spend thousands of dollars. So the foundations, they can be fixed, but they continue to move in dry periods of the year or periods of the year where it's raining. The dirt will move around. Look for energy saving features. Well, the big deal now is to have all LED lights. We have put those in all of our rental homes, all LED bulbs. Saves a lot on energy bills, and it's just an attractive thing to tell them. Well, it's attractive for you as a buyer, and when you go to sell it, it's attractive for you to sell. Your home is a big investment. You need adequate insurance. You need to save for large expenses. You need to try to handle minor repairs. Go take some, look on YouTube on how to handle, you know, if you get a little hole in your wall from a doorknob or something, figure out how to fix it yourself. It's really good to learn how to do some of these things yourself. Home Depot used to have classes on some of these things, but you can also see YouTube and see how people do these things. It's amazing what YouTube can give you. And pay your mortgage on time. It's important for you to keep your house. All right. Home equity loans are more expensive, shorter period of time, maybe 5 to 7 to 10 years, with a higher interest rate than your primary loan. Refinance, you can refinance when there's a lower interest rate, and you can usually, what I used to advise people of is if you can pay for your refinance cost within 2 years of the lower payments that you're going to pay. Think about prepaying if you can afford to do that. Here's some resources. Freddie Mac, my FICO is your score. Let's see. And then this is talking about certified financial planners in your area. You need help. So that's kind of the end of my speech. And let's see if we have any questions. Chat. Oh, I see 2 things. There we go. Back here, if you have questions, you can ask them here. Does anybody have any questions? I don't see any questions yet.
I don't either. Let's give it maybe a minute or 2 and see if anybody puts anything in the chat. Otherwise,
Jennifer, did you know all of that stuff that I went over?
I did not. That was very great information.
Oh,
So.
Good. It's great to hear some real feedback. Where are you people out there? Give me some feedback. Are you there?
All right. Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions, so I think we're going to finish up today. So I want to thank you, Nancy, for being with us, and I want to thank everybody who attended for joining us. We hope you got some good information. Tomorrow, you'll receive an email with a link to a quick survey. The information that you provide on this survey helps the library plan for future presentations and programs. We'll continue hosting this series of financial planning lunch and learns throughout the year. Our next one is October 12th, and we're going to be discussing saving for retirement. Please visit our website, fortworthlibrary.org, to register. And we did record this presentation, and we'll post it to our YouTube page in the next week or so. We'd love for you to subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications so that you know when things are posted. So thank you, Nancy, for spending your time with us today. We really appreciated it, and have a great afternoon.
All right. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.